Let me tell you something, all right? We have been sitting around here for over an hour, and when I look around, all I see are people shooting the bull and drinking coffee.
How can I help you?
Oh, he was first.
No, you go ahead. I think I want to hear this.
When The Blind Side arrived in 2009, it quietly positioned itself as a sports drama. Yet what unfolded on screen was far more intimate than a typical underdog football story. At its heart, the film tells the journey of Michael Oher, a teenager drifting through life without stability, and the unexpected intervention of a family that chose compassion over comfort. Set against the cultural backdrop of Memphis, Tennessee, the narrative bridges two vastly different worlds, one shaped by poverty, trauma, and systemic neglect, and the other by privilege, structure, and opportunity. The result is a story that blends emotional drama with the mechanics of American football, ultimately delivering a character-driven exploration of belonging, identity, and transformation. Michael Oher is introduced not as a prodigy, but as a young man almost invisible to the world around him. His early life is marked by instability, frequent relocations, and a fractured family dynamic. With a mother battling addiction and no consistent guardian presence, he drifts through the school system, attending various institutions without establishing roots. The film underscores the psychological toll of such instability. Michael is quiet, reserved, and guarded, not because he lacks intelligence or emotion, but because survival has trained him to internalize everything. His imposing physical stature contrasts sharply with his withdrawn personality, creating a visual metaphor that drives much of the narrative tension. The turning point occurs when he is admitted into a private Christian school, largely because of his athletic potential rather than his academic record. Even there, he exists on the margins. Teachers question whether he can keep up. Administrators debate whether he belongs. Yet beneath the skepticism, subtle indicators reveal that Michael possesses untapped cognitive ability and a deep capacity for focus. The film avoids portraying him as a conventional sports prodigy from the outset. Instead, it emphasizes incremental growth, academic tutoring, emotional encouragement, and consistent structure. The emotional core of the film centers on Leigh Anne Tuohy, a strong-willed interior designer and mother whose decision to help Michael becomes the catalyst for the story's progression. When she sees him walking alone in the cold, carrying nothing but a plastic bag, she makes a spontaneous choice to intervene. What begins as offering him a place to sleep evolves into something far more profound. Leigh Anne does not approach Michael as a charity case. She confronts his situation with directness, determination, and at times, fierce protectiveness. Her character brings a commanding presence on the screen, balancing warmth with unflinching resolve. The Tuohy family dynamic plays a crucial role in Michael's integration. Sean Tuohy, the father, provides a steady, supportive energy, navigating the practicalities of bringing him into their home while trusting his wife's instincts. Their children, Collins and SJ, react not with resentment but with openness. SJ in particular forms a natural bond with Michael, treating him less like an outsider and more like an older brother from the beginning. These interactions humanize the transition, presenting the blending of families not as seamless perfection, but as a process built on patience and shared experiences. Football becomes both a literal and symbolic framework for Michael's development. Initially, he struggles to grasp the technical aspects of the game. Coaches see his size and strength as assets, but grow frustrated with his hesitation on the field. The breakthrough comes when Leigh Anne reframes the sport in personal terms. She tells Michael to treat the quarterback as he would treat his own family, protect him at all costs. That simple emotional translation unlocks his potential. In that moment, the game shifts from abstract strategy to personal responsibility, aligning with Michael's protective instincts. His performance transforms, not through sudden superhuman ability, but through understanding purpose. As Michael's skills sharpen, college recruiters begin to circle. The film captures the complex intersection of opportunity, ambition, and ethical scrutiny. questions arise about the Tuohy family's motivations, particularly given their connections to the University of Mississippi. External investigations probe whether their guardianship was purely altruistic or strategically aligned with athletic recruitment. This layer introduces tension beyond the sports narrative, forcing Michael to confront doubts about his autonomy and self-worth. The film does not shy away from depicting his confusion and vulnerability during this period. He must decide whether his achievements are truly his own or merely extensions of someone else's influence. The portrayal of education remains central throughout the story. Tutors work with Michael patiently, identifying that his low test scores stem not from incapacity, but from gaps in foundational learning. Scenes of one-on-one academic support reinforce the film's broader message. Potential often lies dormant without access and guidance. As his grades improve, so does his confidence. The camera frequently lingers on his expressions, subtle shifts that signal growth from guarded silence to cautious optimism. Sandra Bullock's performance as Leigh Anne became one of the most discussed elements of the film's reception. Her portrayal balances Southern charm with assertive authority, crafting a character who refuses to be passive in the face of injustice. The performance resonated strongly with audiences and critics alike, ultimately earning her the Academy Award for Best Actress. The recognition elevated the film's cultural footprint, transforming it from a modest sports drama into a widely discussed cinematic event. The awards signified not only appreciation for Bullock's performance, but acknowledgement of the emotional resonance the film achieved. Commercially, The Blind Side exceeded expectations. Produced on a relatively moderate budget, it became a significant box office success. Its financial performance demonstrated the audience's appetite for inspirational true stories, grounded in personal relationships rather than spectacle-driven action. Families, sports fans, and general moviegoers embraced it, leading to sustained word-of-mouth momentum. The film's success also contributed to broader conversations about representation in sports cinema and the appeal of biographical storytelling.
At the same time, the film sparked critical discourse. Some commentators praised its uplifting narrative and accessible storytelling, highlighting its focus on compassion and perseverance. Others examined it through a socio-cultural lens, questioning elements of narrative framing, particularly regarding race and agency. These discussions became part of the film's broader legacy, illustrating how mainstream cinema can simultaneously inspire and provoke debate. Such discourse does not diminish its impact. Rather, it situates the film within a larger conversation about how stories are told and whose perspectives are centered. Visually, the film adopts a grounded aesthetic. It avoids overly stylized cinematography, favoring naturalistic lighting and steady framing that keeps attention on character interaction. Football sequences are choreographed to convey impact without overwhelming the narrative. Editing choices maintain a measured pace, allowing emotional beats to breathe. The Memphis setting is depicted not merely as backdrop, but as contextual influence. Contrasting neighborhoods underscore the socio-economic divide that defines much of Michael's early life. The soundtrack supports the film's tone with subtlety. Rather than dominating scenes, music underscores emotional transitions, moments of quiet triumph, introspection, and familial bonding. The restraints aligns with the film's overall approach, sincerity over sensationalism. Dialogue carries significant weight, particularly in scenes where Leigh Anne confronts prejudice or challenges institutional complacency. These exchanges anchor the film's thematic core. As the narrative approaches Michael's entry into collegiate football and eventual NFL draft trajectory, the emphasis remains on personal growth rather than statistics. Becoming an All-American player and a first-round draft pick serves as narrative culmination, but the emotional climax lies in his sense of belonging. The image of him at the family dinner table carries as much weight as any on-field achievement. The film suggests that success is multidimensional, measured not solely by professional milestones, but by emotional security and self-recognition. Over time, The Blind Side has maintained relevance through continued public interest in Michael Oher's life and reflections on the events depicted. Real-world developments prompted renewed discussions about guardianship arrangements and the complexities behind inspirational narratives. These updates have invited audiences to revisit the film with nuanced perspectives, acknowledging both its storytelling strengths and the real-life intricacies that extend beyond the screen. Such developments illustrate how biographical films often represent only a portion of lived experience, condensed into a cinematic arc.
Within the broader genre of sports dramas, The Blind Side occupies a distinctive space. Unlike films centered exclusively on team dynamics or championship pursuits, this story prioritizes one individual's internal evolution. Football operates as vehicle rather than destination. The film's structure mirrors classical narrative progression, inciting incident, rising tension, personal doubt, climactic affirmation, but grounds each phase in relational development. Culturally, the film contributed to the ongoing popularity of true story adaptations during the late 2000s. Audiences gravitated toward narratives that blended realism with emotional uplift. Its release period, marked by economic uncertainty in the United States, perhaps amplified the appeal of stories emphasizing generosity and upward mobility. Viewers found reassurance in the idea that individual acts of kindness could alter life trajectories. The Blind Side ultimately endures because it taps into universal themes: the human need for stability, the transformative power of mentorship, and the resilience required to overcome systemic obstacles. It portrays compassion not as abstract virtue, but as deliberate action, inviting someone into your home, advocating within institutions, investing time and resources without guaranteed return. At the same time, it portrays growth as collaborative rather than solitary. Michael's success emerges from intersectional support, family, educators, coaches, combined with his own effort. For many viewers, the film remains emotionally resonant years after its release. Scenes of Michael discovering his place within the Tuohy family carry a quiet authenticity that transcends the sports framework. The closing emphasis on his draft achievement reinforces the tangible outcomes of sustained belief. Whether approached as an inspirational drama, a character study, or a cultural artifact reflecting its era, The Blind Side continues to generate conversation. In examining its narrative architecture, performance impact, commercial trajectory, and subsequent discourse, the film stands as a case study in how mainstream cinema can shape public perception of real-life stories. It demonstrates the capacity of film to humanize complex biographies while also highlighting the limitations inherent in two-hour adaptations. Its legacy rests not only in awards or box office figures, but in its emotional imprint on audiences who connected with Michael Oher's journey from isolation to affirmation. More than a decade after its debut, The Blind Side remains embedded in discussions of sports cinema and biographical storytelling. It is remembered for its heartfelt performances, its accessible narrative, and its ability to spark both admiration and critique. At its core, it tells a story about seeing someone the world has overlooked and choosing to act. That choice, portrayed through moments both grand and intimate, forms the blind side the title references, the unseen force that changes everything.